what I wanted to talk about and kind of specify on tonight is more kind of around carb loading. And just for those who are going into the longer ones now, it would be a good time to kind of practice that. So what I'll do is give a general kind of overview of what you can kind of you can still kind of like put some of these kind of tips into practice kind of now. But if you are going up to things like a long run at the moment, it would be good to practice the carb loading side of things. So what we'll do, go through just an introduction about myself. We'll go through some of the goals and things that I encourage my own members to aim for. We'll talk about calories, pre, post, during nutrition, hydration, supplements, and then at the end there's room for questions as well too. So just to wit myself, I'm a dietitian. I run Apex Nutrition. I'm the owner of the last 5+ years, and we specialize in weight loss, muscle building, performance, and clinical nutrition, and especially around marathons as well too. We train a lot of people for marathons, and whether it's Cork or Dublin. So this is going to be our kind of like avatar kind of really for the night. And so this is John, and John is basically just going to represent an average client that I'd see on a regular basis. And basically what I'd go through first with someone like John is that we want to kind of aim for goals. We want to kind of have an idea of like target pace for marathons. We want to have an idea of what time you want to aim for. And it's good to be ambitious kind of with that, even if you're a beginner to advanced. Definitely having goals can push you through the training. From a nutrition aspect, we want to know how much fuel do I need? We want to know how much water do I need, and also how much carbs do I take before and during. So having a strategy kind of around that is super important. Can be the difference between achieving the time that you want and totally crashing and burning as well too. Not to scare anybody, but like you can totally kind of crash and burn on the day as well too if you are going for a competitive kind of time. So the main common challenges that John is facing is that number one, his energy levels are sapped. Um, Number two is that he's getting injured fairly frequently now that the miles are ramping up. He really is starting to feel a few tweaks in the knees, or like he's getting a lot of strains kind of recently. Then there is gut issues. So like I've worked with people before and they could tell you every single kind of bathroom on the track. Forget about water and gel stops, like they know where all the bathrooms are. So gut issues is a big one, and it's a big kind of thing to work into strategy, especially around carb loading. And then sugar cravings is another one, which is very linked with the energy levels. So we get a lot of people presenting with very kind of strong cravings, and all these can be kind of corrected, and there's still enough time to kind of correct these now at the moment if you are experiencing any of them as well too. So what we'll do is break down kind of each of these, point out kind of each of the challenges as we go throughout, and how I'd correct them and how I normally kind of correct them with people. So where to start? So fueling correctly. So we're on about just energy levels as the first one. So basically what I do with everybody is go through kind of the map. Great to know the map, great to know where the water stops are, where the gel stops are, and where the Lucasade stops are. So as I'm saying, nutrition training should start early, probably 2 months kind of ahead of time, and then planning your gels, planning your Lucasade stops around the course, knowing that there's 9 water stations, there's 4 Lucasade stops and 2 gel stops, because all of these can be worked into your own strategy, and that means you don't have to bring as much kind of even like gels. You might have to bring much fluids kind of on the day as well too, if you kind of have a plan on look, I'm going to pick up a gel there kind of halfway through the track. So knowing those things are great, and as I was saying, hopefully you're not getting stomach issues that you have to know where each of the bathrooms are too kind of around the course, because that can happen. Where to start? We want to start at the bottom of the triangle, and that's basically with our calories, and we want to basically make sure we're getting enough fuel. So if I was to drive a car from Cork to Dublin and only fill the tank like halfway, like I'm not going to make that journey. And the same with your distance in a marathon. You want to be able to kind of increase that fuel as the runs are increasing. And now as the runs are getting longer and longer, come like closer to the time, that's where the energy really come, the calories really come become important. So we want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough and giving yourself enough of the right food as well too. And that's where things like macronutrients come into it. So that's your protein, carbs, and fats. We'll talk through those, and then we'll go through kind of meal timing and things like that. But the main thing is that like supplements is 5% of the actual the 5% of the actual kind of event. So supplements will give you that little bit more, but like if you're lacking in energy, you're getting injured fairly often, you're seeing sugar cravings fairly regularly, then we want to start down here at the energy level. As I was saying with the car, it's basically our body's like you can picture kind of a fuel tank, and we want to just give ourselves all that energy and specifically through carbohydrate. A lot of people underestimate the power of carbohydrate in a running event like this and always kind of say, oh, like it's all about the protein side of things, but carbohydrate in particular is what's going to really fuel you through something like this. If you're unsure of your calories, we do have like a calorie and macro calculator as well too. It's free to use on the website as well too, just to give you a ballpark range. And these are just some examples of just the calories and the increase kind of throughout the week. So someone doing like a tempo session or 5K run, shorter runs, like might need less calories. So for example, here we're giving John just 2,800 calories for those. For a 15K run, that could go up to like 3,000 plus calories. Then with a carb load, we're looking at 3,500, and a long run, it could be 3,500 calories. So the variations of calories have to match the run basically in order to prevent things like seeing frequent injuries and to prevent the sugar cravings. If you are seeing frequent injury, a lot of the time it can be a big sign that you are under fueling, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges that I see kind of with people at the start. So we normally start with getting people up to speed in terms of how much they actually need, and match that with their runs kind of throughout the week. if if you're generally like unsure and like having extra calories kind of each day can like it can get confusing. So basically what I would do in that case is like if you were having something like pasta for dinner, it's like increasing the portion of pasta that you're having. If you're having like rice with chicken for lunch, it might be just increasing the portion of rice that you have then at lunch as well too. If you're having oats for breakfast, it might be just increasing the amount of oats that you're having by a little bit as well too. All those little changes in carbohydrate will make a massive difference in that and hopefully prevent the sugar cravings and injuries. Um, so like what we're going to go on to now is basically macronutrients and is your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Protein always is the kind of most famous one. Everybody like knows about protein and the different sources of it. It definitely plays a part in your recovery and definitely plays a part in marathon nutrition. But it's going to be mainly your carbohydrates that we really want to focus on and getting enough of those throughout the day because you'd be surprised how much you actually need. A lot of the time as well too, if we just solely go for the kind of classified healthy carbohydrates, so like your whole grains, like brown rice, brown bread, brown pastas, a lot of the time, like eating enough of those in order to support your energy levels, which we were talking about with calories, it can be hard enough to get a lot, like enough of those in. So a lot of the time, I'll suggest kind of foods such as things like flapjacks, and like you'll even see kind of cereals, pancakes now in the carb loading. A lot of the time people are kind of like, oh, but aren't those kind of unhealthy, and like should I actually be including that much sugar in my diet? When you're running a marathon, like the answer is yes, and it makes it a lot easier on the stomach that you're not taking in that much fiber and your body can just kind of handle that a little bit more. It's a little bit easier on the stomachs when you're doing the longer run. So with fats then too, we'll just go through those, but mainly you just want to focus on kind of healthy fats rather than the kind of other ones we'll go through because they kind of slow down digestion a little bit. So we've simple, complex. The simple carbohydrates are on the left, and what they do is they absorb really quick. The complex carbohydrates like absorb a little bit kind of slower than those. So this all comes into the timing, and we'll go through examples of this like with the timing now in the next few slides. But if I'm an hour out from a run, if I'm 30 minutes out from a run, I don't want to be sitting down and having a big bowl of pasta. I don't want to be sitting down having like a load of spuds and stuff like that. I maybe just want to take in a cereal bar. I maybe want to take in something like a piece of fruit because that is going to rapidly digest, give me the energy that I need, and then I'm able to go out on my run. Whereas with the complex, I want these, but I want them at maybe 2 to 3 hours beforehand, where they'll give me a nice steady state of energy. So basically, the main thing and the main thing around this is that like if you are factoring in a load of runs throughout the week and some of those are longer runs and you're working that around like kids, you're working that around your job, that could be college. It's a lot of food to fit into like a small period of time kind of with that. So it is really good to kind of just sit down and just have a look at just the amount of kind of meals you're having throughout the day. And like you could finish work and have to go on a run. So like can in that situation, can I have a complex carbohydrate maybe at lunchtime and really increase the amount of complex carbohydrate I'm having at lunchtime to facilitate me going for a run later on. So it's about asking those kind of questions as well too. So that's important. With the protein side of things, you've incomplete and complete. So the basics, the difference is that these are all plant-based and these are animal-based proteins. So your basics in protein are just meat, dairy, eggs, and fish. Those are all going to be great for recovery. Like as I was saying, we don't want too much protein. Otherwise, with our kind of character, John, if he's eating way too much protein, that's just going to really fill him up and it's going to take away from the carbohydrate that we saw in the previous one. So basically, if he's having a load of eggs, he's having a load of fish, he's having a load of chicken, that's going to make him feel very full. And he's not going to be able to get in enough things like pasta, rice, and like quinoa. And that's all going to kind of affect the level of energy that we can actually bring to a marathon. And again, like it's definitely good to include the kind of plant-based proteins like the beans and veg and things like that. But we don't again kind of want to overdo it because at the same time, they're very high in fiber, and as well as the protein, it just fills us up. It causes us to kind of bloat a little bit. So just including some in your lunch and dinners like that is good enough. And the kind of the recommendations are about 1.5 to 2 grams per kg of body weight, normally with protein. So anywhere kind of in between that is good enough kind of for recovery. With fats, we've unsaturated, saturated, and trans. So I always get it every year. Like, can I get a McDonald's carb load? Can I get chipper to carb load? It tends not to be the case. Like you can't really do that. Like as I was saying before, like you definitely will know where all the bathrooms are if you're getting McDonald's and having like a Big Mac as your carb load. The problem with this is that these foods are high in carbohydrates, but they're also high in fats. And that again causes stomach issues. It causes things to really slowly go through your stomach. And that way they'll run right through you at the same time if you're trying to run two at the same time. So what we want to do is include some of the unsaturated fats here in the green. Something like if you're having eggs and toast in the morning, mixing in something like avocado with that, sprinkling like chia seeds or flax seeds on the breakfast cereal and the oats. Having two fat servings of fatty fish kind of a week, and all this kind of helps with general inflammation as well too from your training and it's a lot on the body like the marathon training, and this can cause just all kinds of just muscle inflammation, and getting some of these kind of healthy fats in there, getting the omega-3s in will all kind of help with that general recovery. So as we said, one of the challenges was becoming injured a lot. Getting the calories in, but also having your healthy fats is going to be kind of essential in trying to prevent that injury, and just limiting the kind of the yellow and red kind of foods then too as much as possible. So the most like the most important kind of on the day and what would be good to kind of practice now is pre, during, and post nutrition. If you haven't had the chance yet, it's still like you've still time to kind of practice this stuff. The main thing is just never try anything new on the day. We don't really want to do that because again, it could end your race like if you're trying something new on the day. So as I was saying with carbohydrates, these are super important, and basically we want the complex carbohydrates again 2 to 3 hours beforehand. And that kind of varies for people. I've come across athletes that can't stomach it 2 to 3 hours beforehand, so they'd have it like 3.5, 4 hours beforehand. So it's just like it's trying to, number one, fit all these carbohydrates into your day with it being busy kind of already. So having kind of a set structure that way, trialing like even early morning carbohydrate, because normally the marathon starts really early as well too. So it's just getting used to that carbohydrate early in the morning as well too. And also just being able to kind of get used to carbohydrate in general when you're running as well too takes a little bit of practice. So generally speaking, 2 to 3 hours out. So like if you're going running at 6 o'clock, you'd want something like this at 4. And basically you want to start with about 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate per kg of body weight. I'll give an example of what that looks like kind of on the next slides. And for your training, we want 5 to 10 grams of carbohydrate per kg of body weight, which can be a lot of carbohydrates. So like if you're an 80 kg person and you multiply that by 10, that's 800 grams of carbohydrates for something like a long run, which is a lot. It's a lot of carbohydrates. So yeah, like your average piece of fruit could be anywhere from 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate. Like the gels come in like 22 to 40 grams of carbohydrate sometimes. So if you're to get 800, like that's a lot. But for shorter runs, you don't need 800 grams for all runs. For your shorter runs, like it would fall at about 5 grams. So it's just varying that amount. So the main thing is practice with this. As I was saying, give these a go. Things like cereal, potatoes, pasta, rice, oats, bread, all really good carbohydrates to kind of get in. So this is just, as I was saying, an example of we were saying anywhere from like even 5 to 800 grams of carbohydrates. So in terms of if you were going for healthy foods and going for like things like spinach, this is 20 grams of carbohydrate when it comes to spinach. So, like, best of luck getting through that if you're going through healthy sources. And the same with like things like tomato, peppers, like cucumber and berries. Like, you will get stomach issues if you're trying to get 800 grams of carbohydrates from solely healthy sources. What we want to do is definitely include these kind of white bland carbohydrates, because as we see, like 3 slices of bread here are 50 grams of carbohydrates, which would be way easier to eat than something like this before a run. So just having an idea of that is important. And also when I've had people before, like when reading labels, like call like 50 grams of pasta isn't 50 grams of carbohydrate. So it's important to read the label as well too if you are going seeing how much grams of carbohydrate are in there. So that's just important to note. And this is just an example of a lunch or dinner that you could have 2 to 3 hours before a run. So this is 160 grams of carbohydrate. So it's falling kind of in the middle, the 2 to 3 grams per kg of body weight, if it's around kind of 80 kg. And that's cooked white pasta, 300 grams. That's tomato-based pasta sauce, because we don't want something that's really creamy, because that's again high in fat that we went through, and that's very slow digesting. So if we have something tomato based, it's slower in fat, and that will digest a bit faster. We have chicken breast, so we are getting the protein in there, and that's going to be about anywhere from 20 to 30 grams of protein. And then white bread, 3 slices on top of that too. So you can kind of see that there is a massive emphasis on getting that carbohydrate in. And again, see how this kind of sits with your stomach, I suppose, when you start running then. So can you stomach it at the 2 hours? Can you stomach it at the 3 hours? Or like it's all dependent on your own schedule as well too, but good practice to get into. So then we have the pre and during. So this is 1 hour before and during. So mainly these are kind of the ideal ones kind of before a run. So like things like smoothies, like you can have things like Jaffa cakes or fruit. My go-to basically is kind of cereal. I think it's very easy to kind of take on board. You can take a lot of it on board, and it's very high carbohydrate. You have things of like during then, so like all the gels and jellies, just the chews, and also the Lucasade Sport. On average, we want about 30 to 90 grams of carbohydrate every hour of activity. So if you're going for a more intense time, that's going to be up kind of higher. If it's not as an intense of a time, it's going to be kind of on the lower end. And these are all again kind of the simple carbs, so these are all very fast digesting. We don't want to be having like a bowl of oats. We don't want to be having brown pasta during an event. And I'd challenge anybody to do that as well too. It's like from an actual kind of eating standpoint, it's difficult. With carbohydrate, we'll go through kind of carbohydrate stores, but if you kind of carb load properly and you do it effectively, you can actually get extra kind of energy. It gives you up to kind of 25% extra energy. So normally where your carbohydrate stores would last about 60 minutes, if you carb load effectively, that could be up to 90 to 100 minutes. So it gives you a lot more if you do it properly. What I would say is it takes multiple weeks, multiple exposures to actually get used to running with carbohydrate. Naturally, we don't run and eat at the same time, so it takes your body kind of time to get used to things like gels and Lucozade and drinking, especially water as well too. A lot of people forget about the hydration side of things, but it takes your body a lot of time, a few different exposures to actually kind of get used to that. So what I'd say is take note of the gel that they do kind of have on the day, and also just maybe stick to the one gel that suits you, and get used to that kind of now at this stage. Like if you don't have a gel that you're used to kind of at this stage, like I'd advise really kind of putting it into your training plan now at the moment to try and find one that does suit. So next, so like that's just during the marathon. So we have a target. So this is like a 4 hour, 3.5 hour marathon. We have about 60 to 70 grams of carbs per hour, and that equals to 260 grams of carbohydrate. So that is anywhere from kind of 6 to 9 gels, and depending on how much kind of fluid you can kind of take in, 500 mils by two Lucozade. So if there's like four Lucozade stops, you should be able to kind of get that amount in, and that total kind of varies between 210 to 285 grams of carbohydrate. So basically that's generally kind of enough to get you through kind of the race and should kind of keep you fueled. So it's not enough kind of water, like there's water as well too, that counts as the hydration side of things, but you need more water on top of that, which we'll go through. And this is post. So normally post workout, post marathon consists of like pints a lot of the time when I was running them anyway. But if you do if you do want to focus on your post marathon nutrition, you want to get kind of a mix of your protein and carbohydrate. So protein helps with the muscle damage that you've kind of taken on throughout the run, and then the carbohydrate. So when we eat carbohydrate, it's absorbed into our muscles and liver. That is like totally kind of wiped out when we're doing kind of long runs. So there is evidence to show that if we have a protein and also carbohydrate together, it just improves our recovery. If you're doing a marathon, it's obviously not a great time to kind of eat after that. It's not the first thing that you're going to feel like doing, really. So something like a dairy source, whey protein shake or milk, are all kind of very easy on the stomach as well too to kind of take in. And yeah, it's easier to face than something like this, and just will help recovery afterwards. With hydration, like it's a big thing that people don't kind of take seriously enough. We can become very dehydrated when running, and it depends on like if you're even a heavy sweater and how much you sweat as well too. We don't generally want, like, a good indication is just kind of just urine as well too. We don't want to see it down with the darker colors. We want somewhere in the lighter colors. We don't want to be too hydrated as well too, because again, the bathroom problem, like you will know where all the bathrooms are if you drink too much water. But like we don't want to become dehydrated in a race, and that can happen really fast, and especially if it is a warm day. So like a 1 to 2% loss of hydration definitely impairs performance, and even over the 2% like that, like you can almost kind of say goodbye to your race. Like you will, like it will have effects. So like normally at baseline, our baseline needs are about 35 mil per kg of body weight. So that is kind of even without exercise. So like someone like that is running a marathon could look for anywhere from like 40 to 55 mil per kg of body weight. So if you're to add 40, I mean multiply 40 or 55 by your body weight, you'll get an indication of actually how much you kind of need throughout that day. The just the thing around kind of like how much we actually kind of need. So many people are able to kind of drink less than about 700 mil an hour. It's hard to kind of take in any more of that just because of stomach issues. And so basically what I'd recommend is just regular sips every kind of 20 minutes of about 2 to 300 mil. And that is basically kind of a small water bottle, like an average water bottle is about 500 mil like that. So anywhere kind of from like just almost kind of half of that is what you'd want to be aiming for every 10 to 20 minutes. That's not always possible, but what I'd say is at the moment, just try and work it into your training as well too, because it's definitely important on the day and definitely important to get used to. With electrolytes, a lot of people take electrolytes as well too. Like electrolytes are important kind of with like warm and hot kind of climates. And if you are kind of like a heavy sweater, a lot of the time things kind of like your Lucozade Sport and the gels as well too will already kind of have electrolytes built into them as well too. So it's not that you like it's not that you need to overdo it kind of with electrolytes, and if you're taking on too much they can kind of cause stomach issues as well too and be fairly harsh on the stomach. So definitely just trial it, and if you do take electrolytes and they're working for you, I just say trial it in your training and stick with that as your kind of plan for the race. So water, this is just a target for the actual kind of event. So we have about 5 to 600 mil per hour. That's about 2 to 2.4 liters for 4 hour for 4 hour marathon. That's four bottles of 500 mil. And as I was saying, Lucozade also counts towards your liquid intake as well. So if you were to get if you were to get 500 mil bottles of Lucozade that we saw previously, two of those, you'd need kind of two water bottles, then two on top of that to meet your fluid requirements. Again, it's like it's not always possible, and even if you just like take a mouth kind of like a mouth rinse of even Lucozade, it tends to kind of help energy levels. It just kind of signals to your body that you're after kind of taking on carbohydrate and kind of wakes you up a little bit. So if you are feeling a bit nauseous towards the end, that could be a good move as well too. So supplements, as you were saying, they add 5%. So like what I want people to kind of take away from today is that I need to focus on how much I'm eating and how much carbohydrate, and then the rest of it, like I can get like that's where I'm going to get my energy from. With supplements, that's generally not where you're going to get your energy from. Like the gels are going to be important, and as I was saying, they're good, quick carb sources, and the main thing is just again practice with them, find a brand that suits you and that you can kind of carry on the day. Beta alanine not needed as much, just reduces kind of lactate buildup kind of in the muscles. The beetroot juice can be good for more kind of elite kind of athletes that are running kind of marathons, or if you're trying to really kind of add, I suppose, I mean, take away kind of seconds from your PB, then they can be good. They just kind of improve blood flow, and you can take them 3 to 4 days kind of before and take 1 to 2 shots in order to kind of do that. But like for the regular person that is doing a marathon, they can be kind of pricey and things like that, so not really needed. And then hot shots and pickle juice are good for relieving cramping. So they're just supplements. If you get a lot of cramps like that, it can be beneficial, but also I'd look at your hydration if you're getting a lot of cramps as well too. So outside of that, we want to go through just a practical example. So as you're saying, John is becoming our kind of avatar for this. So this is basically what I do kind of 4 to 5 weeks out from a marathon at the moment. So John is we're going to get him to trial carb loading on the long run before the taper, because at that stage it's a small bit too late. Like he knows now what gels he should be using and what suit his stomach, and he's well able to kind of handle them as well too. He's practicing with water sports drinks on his runs as well too. So like you can use things like a lot of people kind of have vests and things like that, and carry water with them or plant them around the place and just kind of pick them up as well too when they're running. But he's practicing with that, and he's definitely eating enough now and knows that he needs more carbohydrate on his longer run and planned that around work. He planned that around kind of picking the kids up as well too in school and knows his routine kind of now. So carb loading, so we're kind of gearing John up for his carb load. So as I was saying, it can add an extra amount of it adds more to your glycogen store. So basically, we'll go through glycogen and what that is next, but basically gives John more energy and gives him up to an additional kind of 25% more in terms of stores of carbohydrate in his body. On a normal day, we have him eating about 5 to 8 grams of carbohydrate, but this can increase to about 10 to 12. So you saw previously how much 20 grams of carbohydrate with spinach and that three slices of bread was 50 grams of carbohydrate. So, like with John here being 80 kg, and we multiply that by 10 to 12, as we were saying, 800 carbohydrates before is a lot, and that could go up to 960 grams of carbohydrate. So, it like you can't just rock up and say I'm going to do a carb load. It does take a lot of practice. It does take a lot of strategy to actually kind of get the amount that you need on the day. But any increase that like if you're not sitting down with kind of like a nutritionist or dietitian doing it, like if you intentionally increase the carbohydrates we talked about today on like the 24 to 36 hours beforehand, it still will make a big difference. So like don't let that kind of put you down and put you off doing a carb load either too at the same time. Again, we're telling him we don't want high fiber foods. We don't want like brown rice, brown pastas, because this will lead to bloat and stomach issues as well. So I've two ways of describing what carb loading does and what glycogen is. So basically, when we eat carbohydrates such as pastas and rices, that's broken down in our body to something called glycogen, and basically that is stored in our liver and muscle. So I like to think of it both as a sponge and also as like honeycomb. So with our muscles, if you zoomed in, this isn't what they look like because it's honeycomb, but just imagine that they kind of look like this. So John, like before coming to Apex and not actually having a strategy around carb loading, didn't eat enough carbohydrate, and his muscle stores of glycogen are very low. So like basically almost empty. So if he went out and done his marathon on this, then his body has no way of pulling all that kind of energy for the first kind of hour, and he's going to start feeling really tired very fast in his marathon. Whereas if he did have a strategy and was getting enough carbohydrate, his muscle would be soaked up with this carbohydrate, and that would be able to be drawn out, and he'd be able to use that for energy. So it's really important from that aspect that we're getting enough fuel and then enough carbohydrate to kind of do this. And just with the sponge side of things, so calories are too low and not enough carbs. This again is what our muscles going to kind of look like. It's going to be dried up, shriveled, and our body isn't going to be able to pull that carbohydrate out. Whereas if you think of a wet sponge, that's basically kind of the muscle saturated with carbohydrate, and that is just again going to give us a little bit of a boost compared to John when he's not carb loading. So I hope that kind of explains it, those two examples, but that's basically it kind of broken down. So an example of kind of a carb load before a race day, and this is something that you could practice kind of now at the moment. So it's 24 to 36 hours. So like it can take place kind of over a number of days, and you don't have to reach like the 10 to 12 grams just in the one day. So you can kind of build that up over kind of the 24 hours. And like with this example, we have something like cereal, we have pancakes, bread, orange juice. So like liquid calories and liquid carbohydrate are a really good one as well too, because they're very easy on the stomach. And things like smoothies and orange juices are really kind of like they're just like easy to kind of consume. Like if you're feeling really full from eating all the pancakes and things like that, you can have something that's lighter, and also add in things like honey and maple syrup onto cereals as well too adds additional carbohydrate, and you don't really even feel it. Things like flapjacks, square bars, cereal bars are great. Just white pasta in general is really good. Your fruit sources and like things like granola can be as well. And then we have just a chicken curry with rice as well here. So, like as you can see, like if you were to hand this to someone and they were like, like there's pancakes and things like that and cereal, like you'd normally say that that's probably like a stereotypical kind of unhealthy diet, but for the case of a carb load, this is the best way to kind of achieve it. It's the best way to saturate your stores. And again, like if you were to do this with something like spinach, you were to do this with something like whole grain carbohydrates, best of luck getting enough food in order to kind of support in order to support your run. So this is basically what John was doing beforehand. He was going high fiber, getting all and like on a normal day do this. Like it's great. Like outside marathon running do get fiber. I'm not dissing fiber. It's actually really good for gut health. But just in the case of a carb load, to be specific, we don't want really high fiber foods because that will cause cramping, it'll cause bloating and cause gas. As you're saying, we don't want very high fat food as well too. It's very slow digesting on the stomach, will cause stomach issues. And like try and avoid McDonald's and like the pizzas and Chinese takeaways for kind of a marathon as well too. They're grand to have them in your celebrations and stuff after, but try and avoid them beforehand. And then again, like we do need enough protein like to recover, but like adding a load of protein and prioritizing the protein, I suppose, in your nutrition strategy again is just going to cause bloating, gas, and when we start running like a load of kilometers on top of that, that's just going to really kind of cause cramping. So we corrected all this and did what we done on the previous slide, and over time John kind of got used to that and had more energy then too in his runs. So a crucial time if you are coming up to your long run to trial something like that. So just the race morning. So as I was saying, like it can be very early in the morning. It can like nerves can be a factor, and we want the 1 to 4 times our body weight. And that basically kind of looks like something like this again. So that's kind of mid-range, two large bagels, 2 tablespoons of jam, one large banana, orange juice as well too to kind of give the fluid. You can swap that out for a coffee too if you like the caffeine side of things as well, because caffeine can really help with running as well. It's a good kind of supplement from a coffee and gel standpoint. So something like that. And the main thing again, just practice with something like this early on. Don't go just having bagels and jam just on the day of the race, and then come to me saying, "Oh, it didn't work." You do have to practice it and make sure that it's right for your body. During the marathon, this is just a kind of rough example. So there's about 7 gels, and I just have different brands here just to be equal to kind of all the brands. Don't go kind of switching 7 different brands on the race as well too. Just like honestly pick one and go with it. And this is based off them having about like kind of 20-25 grams of carbohydrate per gel. So this in total is about 239 grams of carbohydrate, and that's including like the leukosid as well too, and the fluid. So it's about 2 liters of fluid, so it's on probably the lower end of the fluid for the day, but just gives a ballpark kind of range in order to kind of hit. So then we have the post run recovery. So like it's either or. So like something like a protein shake with milk has your carbohydrate, it has your protein, and just helps the recovery after the run, and is a bit lighter on the stomach if you don't feel like facing into a chicken curry after a marathon, which is again can be like that's definitely going to be challenging. So focus on like things like dairy sources because they can be lighter on the stomach. This is just kind of a little bit of a roadmap that I've done out myself, and just the yellow is basically the gels kind of throughout the course for a 3.5, almost 4 hour marathon. The orange, I mean the green are just kind of reminders of when to kind of take sips of fluid. And like as you can see, like there's anywhere from 7 to 8 kind of gel points, and there's like 10 to 12 kind of sips of fluid. So can be good just to remind yourself, look, I need to take it at this point of kind of the race as well too. And yeah, my top tips is basically just practice the strategies beforehand. The carb loading, as I said, it's a good time to do it now if you are going into your long runs. eat enough to fuel. So if you are getting like sugar cravings, energy lows, then just question how much carbohydrate you're taking in at the moment. Make sure you're practicing with the water side of things because it always kind of gets forgotten about, and hydration will knock you as much as the nutrition will. Practice eating during runs, practice your gels as well too. So make sure that the gel is right for you and not causing stomach issues. And there's kind of get excited about it as well too. It's a great achievement no matter how many marathons you're after running. Like it's brilliant. So just on the day, like there are always great days out. So don't worry too much about it too at the same time. Just with ourselves, Apex, like we do performance programs like that. Just with which kind of partner with Serve with this, we're doing like 29 € off our new member fee until next week, until Wednesday next week. If it's something that you do want to kind of get involved in, we improve marathon times, we implement race day strategies, and help improve recovery, and can help improve times up to about 20% as well too. We have a load of success stories that way. So just mention Serve in the application like that, and we'll be able to apply that. So you'll catch us at apexnutrition.ie. And yeah, just don't go it alone. What I always say around marathons is like once you do it once with the nutrition, it's a lot easier to kind of replicate then too. So like if you have been doing marathons for a few marathons, or it's your first marathon, and you're like wondering around the nutrition, if you just kind of get one kind of strategy in place, I find people can kind of take it from there, and